If you have ever walked into a room and instantly, without a single word being spoken, known exactly what the emotional temperature was, you are not alone. Nobody is yelling. There's no overt drama. On the surface, everything looks perfectly normal, but your brain immediately picks up on a subtle, invisible shift. You notice the slightly avoided glance between two people who usually talk to each other. You register the tightness hidden just behind a forced smile. You feel the heavy, unspoken tension lingering in the air like a physical weight pressing against your chest. People might call you highly observant. They might even praise you for being so intuitive, treating your awareness like it is some kind of rare superpower. But from the inside, it rarely feels like a superpower. Most of the time, it feels like a psychological trap. It feels like your brain was built without an off switch. You do not just experience a moment and let it pass. Your mind captures it, dissects it, and replays it on an endless loop, constantly searching for the invisible meanings hidden beneath the surface. To understand why your mind operates this way, we have to look beneath the surface behaviors and into the actual wiring of your nervous system. This intense level of observation is never random. Psychologists generally trace this back to two distinct origins. For some, this is simply the biological reality of being what is known as a highly sensitive person. You are born with a nervous system that lacks the thick, dulling filters most people naturally have. Where others hear just background noise, you hear every distinct conversation. Where others see a basic facial expression, you read an entire emotional history. Your hardware is simply designed to process the world at a much higher, more granular resolution. But for many others, this over-awareness was not born, it was built. It is a state of hypervigilance inherited from the past. If you grew up in an environment that was emotionally unpredictable, where the mood of a parent or a caregiver could shift without warning, your brain had to adapt to survive. You learned very early on that your physical and emotional safety depended entirely on your ability to read the room. You had to predict the storm before it arrived so you could brace for impact. Over time, scanning for subtle shifts in tone, body language, and silence became your baseline. You became a human radar, constantly sweeping your environment for threats. And even though you are an adult now, and that volatile environment is long gone, your brain never turned the radar off. Because this radar is always spinning, it bleeds into every single aspect of your daily life. The first and most exhausting sign of this is living in constant analysis mode. For an over-aware mind, there is almost no such thing as a simple interaction. Imagine receiving a short, slightly vague message from your boss or a friend. Someone with a standard filter might read it, reply, and move on with their day, but your brain instantly halts. It begins running a complex, hidden equation. You analyze the punctuation. You compare the tone of this message to the last 5 messages they sent you. You wonder if the delay in their response means they are quietly upset with you. You aren't just reading words on a screen, you are desperately trying to decode the unspoken intent behind them. This constant overanalysis isn't a sign that you are crazy or paranoid. It is simply your brain trying to solve a puzzle so it can finally feel secure. This intense analytical lens doesn't just point outward at other people. It also turns inward, creating a state of hyper self-awareness. You do not just live your life, you watch yourself living it. You don't just feel your emotions, you stand outside of them, constantly monitoring, categorizing, and judging them. Even when you are experiencing something genuinely beautiful, like a moment of pure joy, deep connection, or success, a quiet voice in the back of your head is analyzing the moment. You wonder if you are reacting correctly. You wonder how long the happiness will last. You criticize yourself for not being present enough, which ironically pulls you even further out of the present. It is a deeply isolating way to live, being trapped in the observation deck of your own mind, watching yourself rather than simply being yourself. I want to pause here for a moment. If you are recognizing yourself in these patterns, if you feel that quiet exhaustion of constantly analyzing everything around you and within you, leave a comment below right now. Tell me which of these signs hits the closest to home for you. Putting it into words is a powerful way to validate your own experience, and reading the comments of others will remind you that you are not the only one walking through the world carrying this heavy, invisible load. This constant scanning naturally filters into how you experience human connection. When you are highly aware, you slowly lose a certain kind of innocence in your relationships. Most people accept kindness, affection, and generosity at face value. They take the performance of human interaction for exactly what it is. But because your awareness allows you to see the backstage of human behavior, you often struggle to simply trust. When someone is exceptionally kind to you, your brain quietly searches for the motive. You wonder what they want. You sense the slight insecurities driving their compliments, or the subtle manipulations hiding in their favors. You see the fragility of the people around you, and while this makes you incredibly understanding, it also makes you deeply cautious. It is incredibly lonely to be the only person in the room who can see the strings attached to the puppets. Because you see those strings, and because you sense that underlying fragility, your empathy is always switched on to the maximum setting. You do not just intellectually understand understand that someone is in pain, you absorb their emotional state into your own body. If a friend is carrying a heavy grief or a coworker is vibrating with quiet anxiety, your nervous system synchronizes with theirs. You become an emotional sponge, soaking up the atmospheric pressure of the room. You often find yourself automatically stepping in to regulate the emotions of everyone around you, smoothing over awkward silences, managing people's tempers, and making sure everyone else feels comfortable. And at the end of the day, you collapse, completely exhausted. You are drained not by what you did, but by the massive emotional load you processed on behalf of other people. This invisible load eventually takes a very real physical toll. When your awareness has nowhere left to go outward, it turns toward your own body. Psychologists refer to this as interoception, your brain's perception of the physical sensations happening inside you. In an over-aware mind, normal bodily functions are suddenly placed under a microscope. You notice a slight change in your heartbeat, a shallow breath, a minor tension in your chest, or a small flutter in your stomach. But instead of ignoring it like a normal filter would, your hypervigilant brain misinterprets these totally normal sensations as blaring alarms of danger. Your brain tells your body something is terribly wrong, which causes your heart to beat faster, which your brain then uses as concrete proof that the danger is real. It is a brutal, self-feeding loop of anxiety, born entirely from a mind that is paying too much attention to things it was never meant to focus on. And here's where it gets interesting. If you step back and look at the overthinking, the hyper-empathy, the self-monitoring, and the physical anxiety, a very clear pattern emerges. Most people think their over-awareness is just a personality trait. They think it is just who they are. But the real reason your mind never shuts off isn't what you think. It is not about intelligence, and it is not about empathy. It is about control. When you strip away all the layers, this intense, agonizing over-awareness is deeply rooted in a desire for emotional safety. Your brain believes that if it can just see every variable, if it can run simulations to predict every possible emotional outcome, if it can understand exactly what everyone is thinking and feeling, then it can protect you from ever being hurt, abandoned, or caught off guard again. You are constantly running mental simulations of the future because your brain thinks that analyzing the world is the exact same thing as controlling the world, but it isn't. All it actually creates is analysis paralysis. You become so overwhelmed by the thousands of data points you process every minute that making a simple decision feels like moving a mountain. You become completely detached from the reality of the present moment, trapped in a theoretical future that hasn't even happened yet. Your ultimate defense mechanism has become your deepest prison. Understanding this dynamic completely changes how you approach your own mind. The solution for an overly aware person is not to try and become less aware. You cannot undo your intelligence, and you cannot permanently turn off a nervous system that was built to see the world in high definition. The depth of your perception is hardwired. The shift happens when you realize that you do not have to carry everything you see. Awareness without boundaries is a punishment. Awareness with boundaries is a profound gift. The goal is to set emotional boundaries and adjust your thought patterns, teaching your brain to simply notice things without absorbing them. There are 3 freeing principles that quiet the over-aware mind. First, you begin to understand that not every silence contains a hidden message. Sometimes a delay in a text is just a delay. Sometimes a quiet room is just a quiet room. Your brain will always try to fill the empty space with worst-case scenarios, but the shift happens when you let the silence remain blank. You stop writing scripts for other people. Second, you realize that not every emotion requires an action. When you feel the familiar surge of anxiety, or when you absorb the heavy sadness of a friend, your instinct has always been to intervene, to analyze it, to solve it. But emotions are just weather passing through the landscape of the body. You can watch the storm roll in, feel the drop in temperature, and simply allow it to pass without feeling the need to control the wind. And finally, you understand that not every insight needs to be spoken or acted upon. You will always see the backstage of human behavior. You will always notice the insecurities and the unspoken truths that people try to hide. But you no longer feel the heavy obligation to do anything about it. You can see someone's flaws, understand their defensive patterns, and simply let them be who they are. You can observe the world with profound clarity, but you keep your energy for yourself. By practicing letting go, your intense awareness begins to soften. It matures. It shifts from a state of chronic, exhausting fear into a state of quiet, detached curiosity. You still see the world deeper than most, but you no longer carry the weight of it on your shoulders. You stop running the invisible equations. You allow yourself to simply exist in the uncertainty of the present moment, trusting that no matter what happens, you will be okay. It is a much lighter way to walk through the world. It was never random, it was a pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That awareness alone changes how you move. If this video helped explain a part of yourself that you have always struggled to understand, please hit the like button and make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and allows us to keep exploring the hidden depths of the human mind together. Your depth is not a flaw. It is simply a highly advanced operating system that requires a different kind of maintenance. There is so much more to uncover about how your mind works. On your screen right now is another video exploring the quiet psychological habits that shape our reality. Click on it and I will see you there. Understanding yourself is the beginning of everything.